If blood was all it took, this is going to be a good video. Send it to anybody who it may be Hispanic that resonates with their ancestors, Black people that resonate with their ancestors, anybody who is interested and actively talking about their ancestors, because this is very important. Okay, we about to go in on this, and so just share it with anybody who has the interest on this topic, because I think there's a lot of questions that we have to ask that are important that nobody is talking about. So in this video, this is what we're going to talk about. So I have a little outline, things I'm going to go through, but it's all based on the premise of what does it mean to be indigenous, right? What does it mean to derive from a culture or have ancestors who practice certain things? As of recently, I have a friend who was attacked for this, right? They were trying to cancel this person because people are always looking for things to be mad about. That's one of the things I noticed about the internet. Like, people are actively seeking out things to be triggered by. Like, that's where they're focused. They're looking for it. Like, they'll look at a post and they'll say, like, something's off about this. I don't know what it, I haven't put my hand on it yet, but I'm looking for it. You know, it's not like they're trying to find the good in the world. They're trying to find, they're actively, and it might not even be like conscious, but they're actively trying to find things that they can point out about somebody that maybe can diminish some of their validity for whatever reason, you know. But so this person was criticized and critiqued for their identity and how they present themselves on social media as somebody who is embracing ancestral lifeways. And the reason that, you know, I felt very strongly about the response he got was because I myself have also been attempted to cancel. Like, when I've said things that people didn't agree with, people have made a concerted effort to try to diminish my identity, my origins, what I come from, and what I represent and what I'm about, because they think that they can dissuade people from the message if they can attack the messenger. But for me, it goes much more beyond the person speaking it, and anybody who has true ears to listen can hear truth. And it doesn't matter out of whose mouth it comes out of. You know truth when it hits your heart. And you know truth, if you're a real person, you'll recognize that real in the world. But if you don't have that quality within you, you'll fall prey to anything. So we have to be very careful, because a lot of people will make a video or make a headline about something, and people will run with that. Before they know it, they haven't even got the full story, and they're already spreading misinformation. They're already sharing it like if it's absolute fact, and then they look stupid when the whole story comes out and it turns out to be something other than what they thought, you know. So I've made it a point to be a lot more mindful when I see information on the internet, to not just take it for face value, but to take it in maybe and sit with it, but then explore the whole story and wait and be patient before casting some sort of ultimate judgment or condemnation on a person that I might not fully have all the information about. And it's happened to me, like I said before. People have come at me because of some of the things I say, and because I'm very clear about my thoughts. And that's important, because most people that you will hear, if you listen to how they talk, they're not clear about their thoughts. They haven't really thought about it as much as they should. And they're kind of just trying to get like social credit from people, validation from people, and appear like righteous in front of people. But it's not something that they have really embodied or dove into enough to have a well-rounded opinion about it. And so these are the people that are spreading, like, they're just trying to get fame right off of TikTok or Instagram or on social media. They use criticizing, canceling, critiquing people as leverage to really feed their own ego, to really feed that own interest in them. They want the spotlight on them, but it's easier to point out somebody who's already doing something rather than for you to do something. That's what they don't want to do. They don't want to do that work of figuring out what they truly stand for. So they just go out into the world and seek things that they don't like, that they don't agree with, and attempt to generate some sort of momentum from that. But that's kind of what's happening and what's on my mind when it comes to this topic. So here's my thing. Okay, your ancestors, right? People love to talk about the ancestors. They romanticize and talk these great things about where they derive from, where the lineage comes from, and they just talk a great story about ancestors. My question is, what are you, ancestors aside, what are you doing today that has some sort of reflection or impact, or some sort of continuum of what your ancestors were doing? And if you have not made a concerted effort, if you have not embodied any type of practices, life ways, beliefs that reflect that, you are not who you think you are. You're just idealizing the idea of it. You like that you think that you derive from a lineage of people that did what you think is great things. You like the idea that they looked a certain way and they did certain things and they had a connection to the land. You like it. It sounds good, but what does that have to do with you today? See, a lot of people are still counting points from days gone by, from days past. They're still living off of the greatness of what their ancestors did, but they are using that so that they don't have to really do anything in their life today. So you have people who are not practicing anything, but they like to bring up this idea of, well, I'm from this part of the world, or I'm this and I'm that. So fucking what? The earth don't care, okay? So fucking what? Okay, yes, but what are you doing that reflects that? See, and if you can't answer that, and if you can't show that in your life, you have no right to be criticizing people who are attempting to do that. And you can make up all the excuses that you want. There's always going to be an excuse. But the matter of the fact is that a lot of people who say or want to take on this ancestral heritage, they really don't have an interest in what their ancestors were doing. They just romanticizing the idea of it. Because when you look out into their life, their culture that they're embodying isn't the culture of their ancestors. The culture that they're intaking and that they're participating in and that they enjoy is the modern culture of the Western Hemisphere, is the culture that has emerged from these cities, these civilizations that have creative ways of being that they are more in alignment with than what their ancestors were doing. So it's easy to get on camera and be like, oh, that guy's not really indigenous. Oh, that guy's not really this. He's not really who he says he is. But then my question for those that want to do that is, what are you doing that represents and reflects where your ancestors come from, or where you say that you come from? And if you're not making a wholehearted effort with your life, if you haven't dedicated energy to that pursuit, just shut up. Just shut up and don't say nothing, because you are just faking the funk. You just trying to get brownie points from social media and give attention, because people love that shit. They love criticizing and pointing people out and canceling people. But that's not progress, okay? Whenever I see anybody, I don't care where they come from and what their lineage is, if they're living a certain way upon the land, that's what I recognize. Because the earth doesn't care what's in your blood. The earth don't give a fuck about the percentage of this, of blah, 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 yada, 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 whatever you say you hail from. It doesn't care. The only way it can relate to you is by the relationship and the exchange that you have with it. If that doesn't exist, then you don't really exist to the earth. You just another person who has been consumed by the mindset of civilization. So it's nice to have somebody who can trace all that back, but at the end of the day, are you letting that stop you, right? If you have this desire, and I will never tell somebody not to pursue this connection with the earth because of where they come from. Because the one thing that all indigenous traditional cultures have in common is that they had a relationship with the earth. And yes, that goes for Anglo-Saxon people. At some point, they had a relationship with the earth. Africans, South America, all these areas of the world that have inhabited humans, they have all had relationships with the earth. I am nobody to stop that connection. And furthermore, that's the thing that the earth needs. That's what humanity actually needs. So for you to try to stop somebody who's pursuing that indigenous connection, who's trying to reconnect with the source of life, you are doing a disservice. See, you might think you doing a service to humanity. You really just serving civilization. You serving a system that destroys nature. That's where your focus is at, because you're on social media trying to appease to people whose lifestyle depends on civilization, people who wholeheartedly embrace and love everything about civilization. So when you see somebody, you're going to point out, this person is not this. They're not who they say they are. But look at their life. Look at what they're talking about. Look at how they're living. Look at the effort that they're making. They are doing more to represent the earth in that balance, in that harmony that we should strive for than you. But you are focused on blood and genetics and the details of it because it's an excuse. It's an excuse that you can feel better than somebody because of something that a piece of paper says. But what does your life look like? If your life doesn't reflect the harmony that and balance in relationship that you should have with the place where you live, whether you exist, all of that is irrelevant. It's just up here. It's just in your mind. You thinking you're walking around high and mighty, but you still get your food from the grocery store. You still you're not having no relationship with the earth. You don't know the plants. You don't know the animals. You don't know the seasons. All you know is the clubs. All you know is Amazon. All you know is the things of that world. So that's my question. What are you doing today? And the earth does not care about your blood. It doesn't care what percentage you hail from. No. What's the point of that? And the thing is that people don't get it is that at some point it might have been easy to see somebody and be like, oh, this person is this way. And these people like let's take back, for instance, let's say it's the year 1500. You might have been able to say, oh, that white person, there's a 99% chance that they're like this. And that indigenous person, there's a 99% chance that they have this type of life and this type of mindset. In modern day, today, you can't tell. It has been so mixed that you can't tell. That you have people who might have indigenous lineages. They might have some blood in them that hails from indigenous blood of certain parts of the world. But their mind and their behavior has nothing to do with that. Their mind and their behavior is a product of the world that they exist in. So what does their blood have anything to do with it if their behavior and the real world effect, the tangible, calculable effects that they have on the world is not in tune with it. It's not in tune with the harmony of earth. And then on the other side, you can have people who, might have derived from the people that colonized that, and now they're seeking to have a connection with the earth. Now they're seeking to live in balance and harmony. See, that's why we can't judge people by the outside anymore. It's not a determining factor because culture trumps race. Culture trumps what's in your blood because that's the program that we receive. If the program that you're running goes against nature, I don't care what you say. You're not living in harmony with it. I don't care what your ancestors were doing. I don't care what's in your blood. If you're not living in harmony with the earth today and making a concerted effort to get closer to that, what are you doing? And that's all I'm saying. So we have to realize that these judgments that we have on humanity don't really fit the bill anymore. Like, oh, I can't just say the white person is this way or indigenous person is this way, African person is this way, because culture has been globalized through social media, through these different outlets. People are being influenced. The way they think is a global phenomenon, to where people are living their traditional ways, their traditional belief systems, and embodying something from somebody across the world, because the program that's running through this device allows them to receive that information and to take it on. So we can't judge anymore about where people come from and where the lineage is as much. There's certain places, certain people who are still doing their thing, who haven't really been tainted as much by this modern mindset, but we're coming into an age where we have to decipher people's actions and how they're relating tangibly to the earth. It's not enough to say that people that you hail from did things in a good way, but what are you doing today? Like, we have to start embracing the things that we idolize, the things that we romanticize. We can romanticize them, but if we don't embody and embrace them, what does that matter? And so that's why I don't focus on race. I don't believe there's any race that's my enemy, because I know that that's shifting right now, and it's not so cut and dry anymore. And at the end of the day, the cultural and the program overrides anything that could be in your blood. The culture overrides everything, because it's the program that people receive. If you grow up in a culture that's it could be a white person that grew up around black people, they're going to embody the culture of that. And then the opposite is true as well. If a black person grows up around predominantly white area, they're going to embody that culture. So that's why I'm saying that we're coming into a space and time where we have to see people's actions. And when it comes to that, you can't tell somebody, or you can't critique somebody that is trying to reconnect with the earth and have that relationship and live a more harmonious and balanced life, regardless of their skin color. Now, if I say I hail from these specific people who have particular practices, and that's a different thing. See, and that's why I don't get too into that. I don't get too into the tribes and the different people specifically. So what I take away is the unanimous and the things that we all shared in common, all traditional people shared in common, because that's universal. The practices that emerge from that's culture. Culture is created. And just how it was been created before, it can be created again. It can be changed, modified. Things evolve and grow over time. But the basis and foundation of that is the relationship to the earth, to the land, to the space that gives us life and allows us to exist. That's a universal, fundamental reality for all traditional people. So we can focus on the certain practices and cultural practices, but those were created at some point, and they evolved at some point. And so I think that we assume that the earth cares about the things that we care about, right? We assume that the earth is concerned with our beliefs and our practices and our own things that we place value on. But if our practices don't enhance or contribute to the balance and harmony of our environment, why would the earth as a living, breathing entity care about that? We care about that because we're in it. We have identified with this certain practice. But what does that got to do with the earth? Unless it's in balance and harmony with that, and is acknowledging that, which a lot of traditional, practices were. They were acknowledging the different cycles of the earth. They were acknowledging the different beings in the earth. So that's really what it boils down to for me. There's this greater purpose, and it's a process of re-indigenizing or making humanity indigenous again, because that is what the earth needs. You can have an enemy in your mind, but I sleep and live with my enemy every day. That because it's me. Is me. Like me, myself has been the sole contributor to the detriment in my life. So when we imagine these outside forces as enemies, it's really they're just enemy unto themselves. But for me, humanity must regain that relationship, and I can't exclude certain groups of people because that's going against what's the best for the earth. So if the best thing for the earth is for humans to live in harmony again, and somebody's doing that, but you don't like or agree with how they look or where they come from, you are a hindrance to the healing of humanity. And you are a cancer to humanity because you are holding on to your own selfish, egotistic desires to want to be prideful about where you come from, to the extent to where you will not let other people participate in the things that will enhance and balance the earth once again. So that's how I look at it. It's nothing that we need to keep for ourselves or that we need to stop other people from embracing because it's bigger than us. It's a collective thing that needs to be embraced, you know. And so that's how I look at this whole topic. And it's unfortunate, you know. A lot of people have a lot of pride when it comes to their ancestors and indigenous ways of life, but a lot of times it's a scapegoat. They feel that because their ancestors did such greatness, like let's take for example Mexican people, right? I'm Mexican. Most people will identify like, oh, I'm Azteca, I'm Mexica, I'm this, I'm that. Even though they don't really know, they just kind of basing it off like what's the most popular and biggest spread people in that region. But there was many tribes. But they'll take that and they'll be like, oh, we built the pyramids, we did this, we did that. But then you go and look at their life and they're just like, they're not doing nothing. They're not doing nothing for themselves. They're eating the food that everybody else is eating, listening to the same bullshit that everybody else is listening to. They don't know the plants in their environment. They don't even know the land that they're standing on. They don't have no relationship to anything that their ancestors had a relationship to. But by them saying like, oh, I'm connected to the lineage of people who did something great, it somehow means that they don't have to do anything great within their lifetime or have a relationship like their ancestors did in this lifetime. And so that's a scapegoat. A lot of people use that as an excuse, you know. So if somebody's doing more than you, if somebody's teaching and embracing and embodying the indigenous traditional ways of life, and you're not, like, just maybe just sit for a second with yourself and see why you're more concerned in trying to stop and validate and see if somebody's identity is accurate and see if are they really, oh, can we check your blood, or where do you really come from? What's your real name? You're not indigenous. Like, before you start doing that, check yourself first. Check to see if the things that you're doing on a daily basis are enhancing humanity, if they're helping and contributing to the balance. Check to see if the people that you've identified with, the culture you identify with, if you're actually living that, or if you just like the idea of it. You like to have the posters, the Aztec calendar. You like to say, you know, have the pyramids in the background. Okay. Other than the cultural pop art of it, other than that, what are you doing to really embody that culture? And that's the real thing that we got to ask ourselves. And it's a hard pill to swallow because most people are not going to fall in line in the part of like they're actually embodying it. Most people are what I'm talking about, that they're just like the idea of it. And well, we can't do that anymore. How long are we going to live off what our ancestors supposedly did? Well, how much are we going to live off of? Well, I come from this lineage, before we actually take action, right? And so that's the confusion. There's no clear thought about this. It's just about pointing out what's wrong with other people and not doing anything in your own personal life. That's really what it comes down to. It's a lot easier to shine a light on somebody who might have made a mistake than for you to actually take the risk of making a mistake and put yourself out there. See, that's what people like that me and my friend and other people are doing online, that we're sharing things, that we're taking the risk that people are going to not receive it right, the risk that people are going to attack us. But that just comes with it, you know. But I think the educational part is very important, like being educated and having the restraint to be like, before I condemn this person, let me try to understand where they're coming from, and let me see maybe if there's a perspective that I haven't looked at that might be helpful for this, because it's easy to just go off and be like, oh yeah, see, I told you this person was wrong, this person is not who they say they are. That's the easiest thing that you could do. But to have some restraint and be like, hold it, before I make a definite decision, let me see if there's another perspective or there's another part of the story that I'm not really grasping, you know. And so that's like the level of thought that we have to come to as people, like not jumping on the bandwagon, not just criticizing people because we know we'll get views for it. You know, we have to rise above that at some point and realize that everybody, well, I should say a lot of people are doing the best that they can. A lot of people are moving the needle on making that progress. You know, it's not an overnight thing, and a lot of people do have good intentions, and they're really coming at it from a place of that's deeper than like the surface thing that what you see. Anybody could throw on an Aztec calendar t-shirt and say, I'm a Mexica, I'm this, I'm that, or just look up a couple Nahuatl words and start reciting them on TikTok and talking about they know. But it's much deeper than that. You know, it's a whole life way. It's the language, it's the food, it's the shelter, it's the connection to the land, it's the way we think, it's our relationships, how we see and relate to one another, it's the structures of how we build our social our social structures, you know, how we relate to one another on a community level. It's like so much that goes into it that people aren't thinking about, but somehow they feel good about just relating to it because they know that their parents or that they come from Mexico or some part of the world that has indigenous people, you know. So that's what I'm saying. Like that was my rant, I guess, because it's kind of frustrating sometimes. But I try to have compassion and just be like, teach, like just show people like a different way to think about it, because you know we all come from. And when I say we, I'm saying the people that are listening through this device right now. If you're on this device, if you're on the internet, if you have access to certain resources, you come from the same world that I come from, which is you come from a world of being disconnected, of being extremely unaware of where things come from, where food comes from, where how things are made and what it takes to create the world that you see. You know, and so knowing that, we have to do the work to become familiar once again with that source world, the natural world where everything comes from. So I'm just gonna see if there's any questions. Yeah, I don't know why I can't receive questions when I have the badge. Oh, and shout out to Heidi B. Mary for the badge. Hey Justice, yeah, love to you too. Okay, Nini said that includes yourself too, because we are part of the elements, honoring ourselves and living in authenticity. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Okay, yeah. So I don't think there's any questions. You know, I just wanted to get on here and share that piece with you all, and I'm trying to connect with my friend and see if he'll come on here and share his perspective, you know. And so stay tuned for that. And you know, as far as myself, like I haven't really been active on social media. I've just been being present to my life, and you know, with family and just doing other things, helping other people with what they have going on. So, but it just feels good to take a break sometimes, you know, with this whole social media machine. Even though I see the value in it, you know, that's why I come and share my thoughts, and I appreciate people who come and listen and also share their perspective, because it serves its purpose, you know. But we have to learn to balance it out, because people get counterproductive when they start using social media in a non-productive way. That's when they feel bad about it. Yeah, so what's your culture? Look at your life today. Analyze how you think, how you eat, how you relate to people, how you relate to the land, and ask yourself, what culture are you embodying and living in? What culture are you actively participating and promoting with your actions? Okay, let's set the idea of what's in your blood or what your ancestors were doing aside for a second, and analyze our own personal life and see what culture we're actually promoting and partaking in. And I think that if we're honest with ourselves, we could say that there's a lot still that we can reprogram from, that we can disconnect from the culture that we were born into, and that we have to know that, because that's the first step, is just to acknowledge and be aware of it, so that you can take any action to, you know, overcome it. So that's it. Thank you guys for coming on. Heidi B. Mary. Yeah, for sure. I appreciate it. All right. Y'all have a beautiful day. Stay balanced.